Good evening and welcome. I'd like to now call to order this meeting of the Jefferson County Public Utility District Number 1. It is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023, 3 p.m., although it feels like later. First order of business is to determine that we have a quorum of the Board of Commissioners. I am Kenneth Collins, Commissioner for District 2 and Chair of the Board.
Jeff Randall, Commissioner for District 1.
Dan Tupper, Commissioner for District 3.
Thank you, gentlemen. We indeed have a quorum. Jefferson PUD is offering both virtual online meetings as well as in-person meetings unless advance notice is provided. Online participant audio will be muted upon entry. Please unmute at the appropriate time to speak. If you're calling in, use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise your hand indicating your desire to speak. Item 2 on our agenda is approval of the agenda itself. Are there any additions or corrections to this evening's agenda?
I'll make the motion and accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Further discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve this afternoon's agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Yeah, another
The
board.
agenda, the agenda has been approved. Item 3 on our agenda is public comment. The public comment period allows members of the public to comment, limited to 3 minutes each, on any items not specifically listed on the agenda or for items listed on the consent agenda. Prior to any public comment, members of the public must first be recognized by the chair and are not permitted to disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct and fair progress of the commissioners' meeting. After an initial warning by the chair, individuals who intentionally violate these guidelines through actual disruption of the commission meeting will be dropped from the meeting. So I'd like to now open up public comment. Any members of the public like to take this opportunity to make a statement? And of course, as we go through the order of business, the various items on the agenda, there will also be opportunities to comment. And I see a raised hand. And looks like the number corresponds to Mr. Risley. Please go ahead, Roger. I believe you're muted. Not hearing anything.
Now am I unmuted?
You are indeed. Please go ahead.
Speak up, Roger.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to thank you for putting up the correct version of your financial policy on the website. That was 3 years and 7 months late. Does anybody know how that got missed? And thank you. It's an accountability issue.
Thank you for your comment. Better late than never. Additional members of the public wish to use this opportunity to make a comment or ask a question. So I am seeing no additional hands raised. And the next item on our agenda is our executive session. Per RCW 42.30.110, Section 1, subsection I, to discuss with legal counsel potential litigation to which the PUD is likely to become a party. And I understand we'll need about an hour. Mr. Street, is that accurate?
Correct. We'll start with an hour.
Okay. So that would mean that we will reconvene at approximately 4:05 or perhaps 4:10 to give us 5 minutes to transition. So we'll now adjourn the board meeting to executive session to be resumed at approximately 4:10.
And Will, we have Jenna Mandel Rice, Adam Gravely, and Tiffany Ellis will be joining us, okay? They're online now.
We have to extend a little bit longer than we thought we would.
Ken, you're muted.
We need to extend the executive session by 30 minutes, which means that we'll be back in general session at approximately 4:45. We have concluded a rather long executive session. We are back in the regular session now. The next item on our agenda, number 5, is manager and staff reports. Is Kevin back in the room? Can people hear me?
The conference room is muted.
We're not in the conference room anymore.
There you go.
All
Now we
right.
can hear you.
So,
Everybody here, everybody happy.
Mr. Street, would you like to give your report?
Yes, I'm gonna start out with seeing if we could schedule a special meeting. It would be very short for next week to approve a document for bidding the underground fiber in the Quilcene Discovery Bay. We would like it Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. We're taking the opportunity with everyone here to hash this one out.
I have a PIF board meeting on Tuesday. I don't have the time. I think 9 AM. Yeah, it's 9 AM.
How about 10 o'clock on Monday?
On schedule for Monday.
I actually think I have to run somebody to the doctor Monday morning. Let me go back and check that.
Monday works for me, whatever time we need to do it.
We
I can
could
see.
do Wednesday.
Wednesday's free for me.
I think
Sorry
Wednesday
about
might be free for me from the looks of it.
1 o'clock on Wednesday?
If that works for everyone, it would be a very short meeting. We would have a bid document.
Well, how about 8:30 on Wednesday morning? Get it out of the way.
You guys are cruel. Okay. Yeah, Wednesday's fine.
Wednesday at 8:30, we'll schedule it for an hour, but we're estimating to be a half hour. And it could be via Zoom if everyone likes.
And this is Wednesday, 29th.
Mhm.
Yeah, sounds correct. I don't, left my phone and everything
Yeah.
in the other room.
Wednesday, the 29th.
Correct.
8:30 AM.
Next thing on mine is, Dan and I went to Washington DC. We met with NTIA. It was just a great meeting. They were very helpful. We feel they're gonna work with us. appreciate Will. He set up a lot of meeting with several people for us to go in to the Capitol. These meetings, these type of trips are important. They do make a difference when we're asking officials to do things for us, if they see us in person. It just, this was a trip that actually paid off very well for us with the NTIA and that whole process there. So, throwing that out. A quick update on the Quilcene water tank. They are gonna start to fill, or not start to fill, the water tank's full, but they're gonna start using the water tank on Monday. They're gonna test for approximately a week, make sure there's no issues. And then they'll start tearing down the old water tank. First of the year, they have a lot of site prep to do. But as soon as that's done, around the first of the year, we'd like to get all three commissioners out, do a ribbon cutting ceremony for the water tank. But it's close to being online, and that's really a feather in our cap. It took a long time to get here. I think the first grant was in 2012. That was a PIF grant to start the engineering. 2024, construction is complete, but it's a major project for that area.
Do you have a time frame again for when you wanted us to get together for that?
First of the year, I don't know if it'll be the very end of December, 1st of January. We're hoping that they would get the parking lot paved and a few more things done. With the holidays, they were gonna try to do some work, some testing over Thanksgiving, but because of a valve problem, they're gonna move all the testing to the following week. So we don't have hard dates yet.
So we keep talking about a water tank there. Is there like a building for where the water testing and all that stuff is done too? Is there more than just a tank?
We have a brand new, I'm gonna call it a doghouse, but a control house. So they have a brand new control house along with the tank, and the old big green above will be coming down in
Right.
December sometime.
Right.
So
Okay.
there is a new control building.
Okay.
We're struggling a little bit with some street light issues in Port Townsend. The new roundabout, that's a joint project between the state and the city. The PUD's involvement is we're setting some street lights. We, city buys them, we install them, we maintain them. So if you guys are by there, working in that roundabout, it's taken us a long time. We don't get many lights set in a day, but we have been working down there. The new lights are either right behind sidewalk or right in sidewalk. We were hoping that our project side, we could get in and get our work done quickly, but it just hasn't happened.
I saw a PUD truck out there when I drove by on the way to the meeting. So I was kind of curious. I thought I'd heard that they were supposed to be done around November 20th with that whole project, but is there any update on timelines and how that affects us?
Our timeline, we should have been done last week with the lights, but how they're kind of traffic control, get people around, and we put a truck in the middle, so it's just been a very slow process between us and the contractor on site.
But it sounds like it's wrapping up.
Our site should be done first of next week.
Okay.
And we were actually pulling wire between the lights. I don't know if they'll be on next week where they'll actually be energized, or if the state contractor will wait till he gets a little bit more done. I'm
Okay.
assuming as soon as we have them ready to turn on, we'll turn them on.
Okay.
But that has been a little bit slower project. The only other thing, we are looking at solutions for our Vandy Car water system. That's where we had a water test fail. We notified as per the state what we're supposed to do there, and now we're looking at remedies. We will bring in HDR we've done enough preliminary work internal with the PUD to go. In the letter we issued to all the people, there was 3 solutions on there. One of them is, looking at maybe tying in with the city. The other one is some filtration like that. We just want the commissioners to know, and those groups, we're working fast and furious, coming up with solutions. We've, have some preliminary costs. It's gonna be pretty expensive to rectify this, issue, but we're gonna move forward. But we are compliant with our notifications and how we're moving forward. And with that, we're gonna call it done.
Any staff reports?
Not at this time.
Commissioner reports. Commissioner Tupper, would you like to lead off?
I can do that. So let's see, I attended the NRECA Broadband Summit on November 7th through 9th with our general manager, and we met with Representative Kilmer at his office at the Capitol on November 8th. Made him aware of our needs for broadband and electric projects. Attended the NOAANET meeting via Zoom that same afternoon on the 8th. NOAANET financials are exceeding budgeted goals. Expenses are on budget. They have 79 days of liquidity. The 2024 budget was approved at 42.6 million, which is down several $100,000 over last year's 2023 budget. NOAANET secured an RFP with the state military office to develop a secure network for National Guard armories over the next 5 years. That's supposed to bring in about $874,000 in revenue from that contract over the period of time. NOAANET department heads gave organizational chart presentations on their current and possible employee positions. It was mentioned during the legislative report that Washington State Broadband Office Director Mark Visconi, and I think everybody's heard this by now, is going to retire at the end of December. Erica Henry will be the interim director at that Office of State Broadband. NOAANET will elect officers at the December meeting. It would appear that the initiative to move forward with equal ownership will be occurring in early 2024. I think there's going to be a resolution put forward at that time that's being worked on right now by General Counsel Ryan Espegard. I think he's still willing to take a little bit input as he's putting that together. On November 9th, our GM and I visited Senator Murray's office and discussed several of our concerns and issues related to broadband and on the electric side as well. Her staff were very responsive of the ask that we made for support on broadband grants and also on the electric division projects. And they were going to brief Senator Murray with all that information. After that meeting, we traveled to Kevin and I traveled to the Commerce Building and met with a representative of NTIA. And I won't go into that. Kevin's already reported that it appears as though that meeting went well. They're supportive of our efforts. At the NRECA conference, I attended presentations on broadband open access challenges. Presenters there were from the law firm of Keller and Heckman in Washington, D.C., who Kevin informed me has done some work for us here, I think on pole attachments or something along those lines. I also listened to a representative from U.S. Treasury Department on the efforts that his department has made at dispensing and administrative funding for broadband that came out through their department over the past 3 years, and that their approach was to be flexible, and they have had great success with that model. And I think they've allocated, I think 80%, I don't remember the exact number of their funds to date. So that sounded like Treasury kind of had its act together. He said that they were about, 80% with their funding, and that the government shutdowns would not affect their ability to keep that money coming and flowing and meeting the obligations that they've made. Unfortunately, we were not able to make a meeting with RUS, so our conversations with them about our RESP program are going to have to remain remote at the moment. Hopefully we can get in touch with them in some way, shape, or form and figure out what we can do on with getting that money moving here on our end. On November 13th, I attended the Jefferson County Fire Chiefs meeting. On the 14th, I met with GM Street and County Commissioner Brotherton, along with some county staff, I mentioned it before that they were preparing a white paper for the issues that they'll be addressing in the Brennan area on some of the growth management and county comprehensive issues that they got going down there. And that's going to be ready to go out for the public soon. So fellow commissioners should get to see that here with any luck. I'm thinking maybe not too long or.
Didn't get any response back, so I don't know the date.
Yeah, so there's no date, but that white paper should be forthcoming, it sounded like, relatively soon. I attended the Waputa Commissioner Education Roundtable in Olympia on November 15th. I attended the Waputa committee meetings on November 16th. At the Water Committee meeting, Matthew Stevie, who is the Waputa representative to the Public Works Board, gave an update on the Public Works Board funding available through the end of the year and for what they expect to see coming through out of the legislature in the next session. There were discussions on potential water issues and talking points for the Washington, D.C. fly-in in February, and a legislative update by contract lobbyist Bill Clark. I attended the ICG meeting via Zoom that same evening. At the Waputa Board of Directors meeting on the 17th, Scott Wilson of BPA said that there will be a reserve distribution, I think beginning in December. That's similar to the one we had last year, but this one's going to be about half of that. So I'd expect our portion to be $1.5 million over probably the next 10 months coming our way in the form of a credit. So again, hopefully that's money that we can use towards reserves, but if our reserves are up, maybe we find other uses for that money. So we'll see how that credit, which frees us up to have money that we're not paying to BPA. What else? I received a phone call from Leo Boyd on November 20th regarding our change in broadband, wholesale broadband rates. We also talked a little bit about the email that he sent to the board with questions regarding the PUD business plan and if it had been filed with the state on our retail service. That we needed to do that to comply with RCWs, and concerns he had that we're building our pilot project in an area that is conceivably already served. So that's a discussion we can have at some point in time. Whether that happens tonight remains to be seen, but that was some of his concerns in the phone call that I had with him. I meet with Kevin Street on November 22nd. I will attend the fifth board meeting on November 28th. I meet again with Kevin on December 1st. I will attend our BOC meeting on the 12th, and I plan on attending the NOAANET meeting in Spokane, weather permitting, on December 13th. So the 12th I'll actually be Zoom, because I'll probably go the day before the NOAANET meeting and Zoom in for our board meeting on the 12th. That concludes my report.
Commissioner Randall.
Thanks. So on the 8th, I attended in person my first NOAANET meeting. So I was at the same NOAANET meeting that Dan attended. And I wanted to just take a few moments to share some perspective that I got from being there in person that kind of changed my understanding of the issues. So as Dan said, the group agreed, made a consensus decision to move forward with one member, one vote, and equal ownership. So everybody would be at roughly 10% ownership. That was a consensus. And both Dan and I expressed some of our concerns because Jefferson PUD is in the unique position of going from 0.2% to 10%. And if there was ever a future assessment, that would increase our potential liability on the difference of what our assessment would be in the current situation versus that situation. And it was so interesting to watch the body language. There was just massive amount of eye rolling and harumphing going on. And it made me wonder about that. So after the meeting, I went and as also as Dan correctly stated, the attorney for NOAANET, when we asked him, what's the current bylaws say about withdrawal? We asked this question, well, if a member didn't like an assessment amount that was going to hit him, what's the limitations on withdrawal? And he couldn't remember if he had to provide 30 days or 60 days notice. So he said he would be willing to take comments on what that time period should be. So I think we should look at, before that vote of NOAANET, on those bylaws. What do the bylaws currently say, and do we have any comments on that? But in any event, the thought I had was, wait a minute, where do we really sit financially compared to these other organizations? So I put together a little chart and I looked at, okay, each one of the members of NOANET, what's our annual revenues? What is our cash reserves? And how many customers do we have? Just to kind of get a sense of what's our risk portfolio compared to some of these other organizations. And we're not at the bottom. We're more in the middle of the pack in terms of our cash reserves, our annual revenues, and therefore, to me, our risk exposure. So if we had, let's say we go forward, we stay in NOANET, we're now a 10% owner. If an assessment is coming down the line, which the management says they have no plans to do it, they don't want to do it. They want to operate NOANET out of its own revenues. There would be 3 or 4 other members who would probably be in the same position that we are. And we know that Energy Northwest has an even lower tolerance for an assessment, and they abstained from the vote on amending the bylaws because they're really concerned about it. Okanagan, Pacific, and what was the other one? Okanagan, Pacific, and Kitsap and Energy Northwest are all about the same or less resources than we have. And then there's 3 that have way more resources than we have, or 2, Benton and Franklin are much bigger. So it really, when I did the math and I looked at who was sitting around the room and I thought about what is it going to feel like to be at 10%, it really helped me relax a little bit about it, that we wouldn't be alone if there was an assessment coming along in terms of how we would be looking at it and our ability to pay. There would be others similarly situated in a similar financial situation. So I feel more comfortable with it, frankly. And the devil's always in the details on the bylaws, but that I just wanted to share that.
No, and if you don't mind me
Yeah,
kicking in
go
here
ahead.
real quick,
Go ahead.
again, through this whole process, I thought it was kind of disjointed and out of sequence and things like that, but the rest of the group didn't seem to view it that way, which is fine. Again, I'll kind of look at it as, I was the devil's advocate in a lot of this. I don't have a problem with us going to 10% ownership. I don't have a problem with the group, doing that. I always felt like you said, I didn't run the numbers like you did, but there were other utilities who may, be thinking the same thing we are and weren't as worried or didn't want to speak about it. So I always kind of threw this out there so that they had the chance to speak up. And it finally reached critical mass that everyone was tired of the process, and that was great. But I just wanted to get on the record that I am in support of this, but under the guise of a board of directors, I understand the commitment there from me and the other directors is what's best for NOANET. I'm still, you can't divorce the owner members from NOANET to that extent. I think that is where I have trouble kind of drawing the lines of what is in the best interest of NOANET. If 5 or 6 of the members find out that these decisions aren't going to work out, was it in the best interest to do this?
Yeah.
It's you don't know until you do it.
Right.
So
Just to clarify, when you talk about our moving to 10% ownership, we are not talking about ponying up money.
Correct.
We are being grandparented in from our 0.5% position right now.
Correct. Yeah, there's not a buy-in.
No, well, at least the devil's in the details. My understanding of how everyone gets there is that it's going to be, we're just we're there.
Yeah. It's about future liability and assessment.
Again, we'll see what's in the resolution when
Yeah.
the resolution comes out, if there's more detail that we hadn't been aware of or weren't thinking about. So again, I just wanted to be on the record that, I am in support of the equal ownership. So
Yeah.
it may not have seemed that way, but that was kind of the way I felt it should go, because I wanted the other utilities to have the ability for someone to take the lead if they wanted to speak out, and nobody really did at the end of the day. And that's all good.
Yeah. And
So-
I think it'll help put some issues behind the group. And I'm really interested as we continue on this broadband path that we're going down. I'm really interested in exploring how can we utilize our ownership position in NOAANET, this, this partnership we have with this other public agencies to help us. How can we leverage that? And as I spent some time talking to Mike Henson, who is their chief of operations, and he lives in Hansville, in Kitsap County. He's close by. He's happy to meet with us for lunch anytime. Any of us want to talk to him more about things. That both he and Craig Nelson keep saying the same thing. They want us to be successful, and they just want us to share, okay, what are you trying to do? We want you to be successful. We do not see NOAANET and Jefferson PUD in competition. And we want to collaborate, and we want to know how we can help. So I look at it as an opportunity. So I'm going to try and go to that same one in Spokane too, weather permitting, because I think there is so much to be gained by in-person contact. But yeah, and Dan and I were totally on the same page in the meeting. We were not at cross purposes at all. And so went to that.
Thanks to you both for being so dedicated to that. I think there'll be some longer term benefits.
Well, it's important, and there's a lot of back history with Jefferson PUD and NOAANET, and you can just see it and feel it. There's this tension, and I don't know why, frankly, it needs to exist. And I think we just need to work more together and get a better understanding. And I think that tension will slowly evaporate. Let's see here. And all the other folks, the Okanogans and all the rest of them said, yeah, we don't have any problem all being at 10%. So I think people see it as a good thing. So moving on.
One quick thing, Jeff.
Sure.
And we shouldn't be using the term 10%. It's equal ownership.
Equal
There
ownership.
could be eight owners, which would make us a 12, whatever
Right.
percent owner,
Right.
13% owner. So
Yeah,
just
going forward, equal ownership.
equal ownership, one,
Right.
one owner, one vote.
Yep. On the 14th, I listened into the BPA contracts workshop issue, which is interesting. I listened in remotely because I wasn't feeling well. The WAPUTA meetings in Olympia, I had intended to go, but I came down with a cold. And I did find out there was some discussion about this solar net metering study that Nicholas presented, and they talked about quite a bit. I asked for a copy of the study just to kind of look at it myself, because they were throwing numbers out in terms of cost shift. And for me, when I did math in high school, it didn't matter what your answer was. You have to show your work. So I want to see, what's this work that supports their number? And Nicholas responded, oh, the report's not done. It's in draft form only, and it will not be finalized until mid-December. So I've asked for a copy of the draft and, of course, a copy of the final one, but more will, I'm sure, follow on that, but it's not a done report. Attended the ICG meeting on the 16th. And at that meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the city and the county have to do comprehensive plan updates. I think that it has to be done in 2025, but the work's going to be done in 2024. So we talked a lot about using the format of the ICG meetings to communicate issues that we all have, just to make sure that those plans are consistent, and we hear about what the county and the city and the port priorities are, and we can share what our issues are and collaborate on things where we've got infrastructure in places where they're doing planning, and that we're not surprised by something that appears in their plan and we're like, oh, gee, our infrastructure won't support what's in your plan. So I thought that was a positive discussion. And at the end of the meeting, it was really odd, but it seems like we reauthorized the ICG, and we basically stated that to act, there has to be a quorum of all the bodies, but if there isn't a quorum of all the bodies, the group can still meet to discuss. So that seemed to be what was decided. And then looking ahead.
One more
yeah.
thing about that. So we approved the resolution with it
Mhm.
the way it had been, where there needed to be. So we are going to write, was there going to be I was missing a little
I
bit.
thought
Was there a special meeting that was going to be called, or another opportunity to look at those bylaws again and change that quorum language? I thought that was what.
we talked about it, but I thought at the last minute, the motion was made to just change the wording a little bit so that it was.
I was missing it.
was-
As we got
we were-
towards the end, it was getting harder on Zoom
Yeah.
to make out what actually was being said. And
Yeah.
I know they ran over. so I
Whether
was just curious.
whether the resolution includes that, or we're going to get a new one to include it, that was the intent,
Okay.
know.
And then one other thing, I heard something about a committee or revising
Oh,
or
yeah.
growth management related, or maybe
Yeah.
it had to do with a comp plan. Are we going to be a party to that?
Yeah.
Because again, that's a discussion we should have beginning of the year, because I would like to be on that committee
Yeah.
if we're gonna do that.
There was, so as we talk about the ICG performing this function of being a place where both the city and the county planners come to talk about their updates to the plans and what those details are, there was this discussion of, is the ICG a too big and a too wieldy group to bring together to hold these meetings? And there was some talk about forming a smaller group to do that work, being that they could meet more frequently and it'd be easier to pull them together. I have concerns about that, because you could have a smaller group and they could be getting all this information and the people in that group might not see an issue. Whereas if I'm not in the group, or if Dan's not in the group and we were there, we might say, hey, wait a minute, what about, this issue? So
It was unclear to me what exactly was being.
nothing was decided, but I think we're going to talk about that in the beginning of the year when the ICG next meets. But I prefer more people there, more broad discussion about these plans, so we have a better, more thorough understanding of what we're all doing, as opposed to some small group. I think we benefit by a broader discussion.
Yeah, I understand the challenges with bigger groups. So believe me, I've been on a lot of boards where there was 15 or 20 people. So I get that one. But my concern was this, when I said I would be interested in being on that, was because if it is a small group, it's the same thing that we had this discussion over with the EDC. Is District 3 and District 2 going to be represented? Because people may not agree with this statement, but there's a lot of people out in the county who don't believe they're represented at these kind of things in District 2 and District 3.
Yeah.
So what the composition of that board of who's on it will matter.
Yeah. And I think when we talk to the other parties about this, it sounds like the planning staff has a very definite idea of what work needs to be done. And if we could simply have them kind of map out a series of meetings and say, okay, here's the meetings we need to have, just get them on the calendar and have us all be there. And then looking ahead, I already said this, planning to try and go to Spokane for the NOAANET meeting on the 13th, and I'll participate in our upcoming meetings that we're holding too. So that is my report. Oh, and Kevin, I saw on the calendar, there was something about an employee meeting it's like December 20th, like a hot little holiday thing. Is that something the commissioners can come to?
You were supposed to be invited.
Okay.
Yes, we're gonna list it as a meeting, but it's really
It's not not to do business. It's a,
do business. It's our holiday party.
yeah.
Yeah,
Chose to do it here. It's gonna be, I think, from 3 to 5.
Okay.
I think it came through as an RSVP. I think I already.
I might have missed it.
Maybe I could be mistaken.
I saw it.
I know Melanie's not online now, but I talked to her. The commissioners were invited.
Okay.
And we do hope to come.
Okay, great.
It should be fun.
Okay.
It's kind of a get together.
Thanks for holding that. That is my report.
Thank you. I will be brief. I attended the Waputa meeting in Olympia, the 15th through the 17th. I found it particularly interesting that they had a representative from the Public Works Board. That was informative, and also one of the commissioners from the UTC. I really appreciated that exposure. And he made it clear that they're not looking to extend their control into public utilities, which was refreshing to hear. I hope he meant it. And it was kind of a bittersweet experience attending the celebration retirement party for George Kahn. I think he will be very much missed. In working with him over the years, I've been impressed that he is a very brilliant individual. He grasps the issues. He's extremely articulate, and a genuinely nice person. So I'm sure that Liz Anderson will do an outstanding job. But George leaves behind shoes, I think, that'll be very difficult to fill. On the Earlier today, I had phone conversations with our general manager, with Leo Boyd, and with legal counsel. On December 1st, I'll have a meeting with the general manager and another meeting on the 8th with our general manager. And having made the trip previously to Spokane in the wintertime, I ain't gonna do that again.
Yeah, it's a risky one. Not for the faint of heart.
No fun getting stuck in the mountains in the snow. So, next item on tonight's agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Are there any changes, any items that need to be stripped from the consent agenda for individual discussion?
No, I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as proposed.
Second the motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda has been approved. Item 8 on our agenda is old business, and that would be item 8.1, broadband rate revisions. Somebody has to start.
I'll start.
I will gladly start.
Yeah. We brought this issue to the commissioner's attention last month. We were requesting, we have a hand up, but I don't know. There it goes. We brought this issue to the commissioner's attention last month. We wanted to make a couple of changes to simplify the rates and to make and to remove one component of the pricing and raise up the base wholesale rates to recover the income that would be lost by removing that core requirement that we discussed in detail last time. We brought a kind of a quick outline of possible rate increases. We worked on it some more. We were able to sharpen the pencil a little bit, and we're bringing those back this week. I did want to say, just in context, we're trying to find the right mix. Per our original business planning with Doug Dawson, per the original strategic plan that we did back in 2021, it was a very narrow path for us to break even with broadband. And a couple of things needed to break our ways to make that happen. One was that retail access would have to be granted by the state. That happened. Another would be that we'd have to get sufficient grant funding to build out the infrastructure. That happened. So we've gotten those two things. The next part is that we needed to have above a 40% take rate. According to our registrations that we have now, we're above 40% in every single one of our grant project zones. We are almost at 60% we're over 60%. In one of them, we're almost at 60%. In two of them, we have already 3,000 people registered to have broadband installed to their home. So we're meeting that. The last one was that we needed to have prices that started at $60 a month at the lowest for the service. And we'd be more successful financially. We'd be closer to break even and being able to be break even for the long term if we could get near $70. That was on the retail level. We still need to have an average rate of return that is nearer to that $60 level as we can across all of our connections. So when I'm coming back to you guys and I'm adjusting the wholesale rates and I'm not adjusting the retail rates, because we've set them for where we need to be. But depending on the mix of how many retail and how many wholesale rates is where our average cost is going to be. So when we took away one component of our wholesale rates, we needed to make them back somewhere else. So that's why I adjusted the base wholesale rate. That's why we're asking for the change. We were able to find, like I said, we were able to review it a little bit more, bring that back down. We're comfortable with this. Whatever happens, whatever rate we choose to go with, Our customers are gonna get a fantastic service at a great price, either from us at retail or from our ISP partners that are on our network. That is not the issue as I see it. So we're comfortable with this proposal. I'm happy to answer more questions. If this commission is not comfortable voting on it tonight or wants more info, we can do that. But the base thing is that we, with these, the other part of it, with these PON rates that we're going to be offering, this is gonna, for most of the legacy connections that we have, this will be a lowering of their costs to be connected. And again, to get a fantastic service. And we have a few trial connections on the network that are open access and a few of our own that are retail. Some of those prices would change when if we adopted the rate change. I don't think it's going to be a change that will bother anybody. We want to make sure we kind of get this program and take what we've learned and locked in place before we make our major push into our grant funded areas now that we're getting closer to going to construction on a large scale. So that's what I have.
Well,
Yep, go ahead.
yeah, question. If we approve the rate changes, when do the wholesale rates go into effect?
They would go into effect on December 1st.
So is there a reason why, when we do rate changes in other parts of the utility, we typically give people more notice, more time to adjust? Is there a reason why we couldn't implement the wholesale rate changes and give people more time to expect it and then accept it?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it. It's literally a handful. I don't know if it's more than 5 wholesale customers that would be affected. But we don't want we don't want different rates being promoted or trying to be sold out in the community, other than the ones we're proposing tonight. Kevin, did you want to say something?
And Ken, you're correct on others. For example, when we change the construction rate, we do give them, a time frame before we start charging the new rate. We also honor, people that's in the queue so that they would get the older rate. In this case, though, our rate is what the new ISPs are going to use to set their rate for their customers. So the sooner the better for them, but we could push it to January 1, Ken, if that's
fine.
more acceptable.
I think that gives a little bit of a leeway. People have time to get more comfortable or less uncomfortable with the change, as the case may be.
So you mentioned a couple of the metrics that you're using, the change in service or lowering of, what we're going to do. I think we're at a point with the development or the evolution of broadband where, because we are a public facing entity and we have, have a lot of grant money, that sort of thing. This plays to what Commissioner Randall talked about earlier, and that is show your work. I think maybe our wholesale rates before were maybe a little bit of they've been that way, that's what they are. But as we start to tweak, whether it's the wholesale rate or these retail rates, that we start to show what we're basing that on exactly, right? You're talking about estimated passings. You're talking about a certain number of signups. We need to start showing, if we're going to have rate increases or even decreases, that we show what we're basing those costs, i.e. the rates, what is it that's going into those rates that we are either need to recover, or whether it's a profit margin or just a plain margin. I think we're at that point now that we need to start being more diligent and more forward public facing with what exactly that rate, what is it covering? Just like we would on the electric side or the water side.
So I'll just take a minute here and respond. Part, and, you know, on the rate study on electrical or water or sewer, what we've done in the past, it's a snapshot in time of what you have built, what you're going to build, and moving forward. We really don't have that snapshot. I agree, Dan, we can bring some information back and show, but they're estimated numbers at this time because we don't have that snapshot in time to say, okay, it's cost us 15 million to build this section and we have this many customers, so this is your cost of service. We'll get there, but a lot of what we still have, and we'll send you, do a presentation to the board, will be still on the estimates. It's, you know, we really haven't built much, and what we have built, our crews have done, so we don't have that spot in time where we can give you a definite dollars workout similar to what FCS has done for the commissioners for the electrical and water side.
But if we're able to identify that we have to have an increase or a decrease, I think we have enough, some information that's leading us to that, whether it's an estimate or not. I think that should be something we start to make more known or available for review.
Yeah, we have the business model that we put together with Doug Dawson that is what we've used to make these decisions. I'd be happy to spend, we talked about doing a little bit, another review of the business model. We can do that again.
I would suggest we're due for
Yeah,
a special meeting / workshop / retreat, whatever it is, strictly around the broadband business plan,
sure.
not the model, the business plan. There's a difference between a model and a plan. A plan is the steps we're going to use to execute, you know, how it moves forward. A model is kind of, here's what we think we want to do, and here's, we're going with the pond, we're doing this. But the level of detail is the business plan. And I think we're at the point where we need to sit down and start to show what that really looks like.
Well, what we have is a projection. And that is what we're using as the basis of our plan. And that's what we put together with Doug, and that's what we use to reference. And we can bring that back out again and work through some of those scenarios. But we have not built the pond network. We only have one full-time dedicated broadband employee. We don't have cost of goods sold or cost of goods to compare to our service provided. We're just not there yet. So the target I'm getting at when I do all of these rate changes is trying to make sure we can be an average average return of above $60 between all of them combined. And I could spend some more time with Doug running out that model again.
Well, we've budgeted people, we've budgeted for equipment, you know.
Yeah, and that's what
Buckets and
that's what
trucks
we've
and-
had, and we can do a little bit more updating of that as we've gotten closer. We have interviewed now a lead network tech, and we hope to have them start December. We've got more people coming in soon, so we'll start to put together those components, and it'll be easier to have some not more faith in the projections, but just to have more actuals
Because there's,
in the budget.
because there's still components of this plan, and that's the $750 fee for the later on hookups. Those are, I think we need to start having those discussions now, not later.
But even that 750 was a swag. It was something comfortable to throw out to the public.
So Ken, I don't know if you can see this. Leo's got his hand up, but I had a kind of a clarifying question of staff, if I could ask before. Leo.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Will, could you just walk through this table on page 33 of the packet? I think you made some modifications to this since our last meetings. And I think I was the one asking for, could you show?
Some red lines.
Yeah, and I'm getting a little lost in the red lines. So
Yeah, I know.
so I'll just take a couple of them, and if you explain a couple of them, I think I'll get it all. So maybe could you start like on the wholesale?
Let me share my screen and then I'll
Yeah.
bring
Wait till you
that
get it up, then I'll ask my question. And if maybe you can make that just a wee bit bigger. You can.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start on the wholesale pond
Mhm.
connection table and just take the column of residential only 150 by 150. And could you just go, so you've got the top row says current proposal, then it says previous proposal, then it says current proposal, and then it says wholesale. Could you just explain what each of those are? And I think that'll explain
Yeah.
to me how the rest of the table works.
Yep. So the first thing we added in is we did not, the 150 by 150 megabit per second product, we only want to sell that to residential customers. We don't want to sell that to business. So we just wanted to clarify that. The first line is what our current wholesale PON rates are without internet and without IP addresses. And that's basically, we just connect the fiber to a switch, and then the provider has to provide their own internet or purchase it from us, which is a component in the package, and they have to provide their IP address or purchase it from us. So those are options that they have. The previous proposal, we'd raise it up probably too high. And the current proposal is what we're proposing now.
The 47.
47, the 54, and we feel more comfortable. We can cover that and still meet our minimum.
And then the wholesale PON LIPE 30.
Low income discount.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. That's
Sorry,
helpful.
I had the full acronym up above.
Yeah, this is like the acronym table from hell.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of
I'll
acronyms.
pile on, there's a T missing off transport in the next paragraph. So.
Oh yeah, it says transport.
That's the
I'm
French,
piling
that's
on.
the French transport that we sell.
That's the Star Trek one, the transporter.
Thanks.
And then if you could jump down to metered product,
Mhm.
billed at 95th,
Mhm.
and then you've got one column that says current, and it shows wholesale metered internet at 0.55, retailed metered internet at 0.75, and then next to it is the 0.60 and the 0.65, what you're proposing to go to?
Yep.
Okay. So the question and concern I had there, I don't know how much of a mainstay product this is intended to be, but as I look at that, the current is showing a 20-cent difference between wholesale and retail, and the new one is only showing a 5-cent difference between wholesale and retail. I don't know how significant that is.
For the transport products, we lowered the difference between the two because it's not, it's more something we're selling direct. So it doesn't need to be as much margin left as it was for all of the individual whole PON connections. We felt like we had too much margin before.
Okay, I didn't know if that was like really squeezing, that we were offering a retail product at 0.65 and we're selling it at 0.60, and somehow the other ISPs,
I had a question.
how are
as
they going to
whether
be able to
we-
compete with that?
Yeah, because it's,
Is that fair?
Cheap.
It's cheap.
We should raise our prices there.
Okay,
yeah.
About 8 times underpriced.
that was one you brought up for. That's all my questions for now. So,
And this, I hate to say it, will probably change again.
well, and that's the other thing I was gonna say is like we haven't even started yet, and we're getting to the beginning, and I anticipate that as we have like, any of our rates, if we have customers are like, hey, this is completely unfair, this is wrong, this doesn't work, we're gonna hear that, and we're gonna need to make changes and adaptions to this continually. So,
Well, again, that brings me back to my point earlier. I think we're at a juncture where we need a workshop to really get into the weeds and in depth about our projections. And there will be projections. I get that. We projected a $15 million broadband budget in the budget, right? Was it 15 million? Was that the total? We don't know if we'll spend that or, yeah. So again, my concern is this. I don't know how or why we even did what we did a year ago with setting rates. Quite honestly, we were a little ahead of the horse. Now we have more metrics, more dynamics that we're able to look at and say, okay, this is getting to be a little bit better guess. I really don't want to see us change anything in 2024. I really would hope that we can kind of get to a point at the end. If it's this one, that's great. I don't want to have to keep going back to this. I think we're at a point where we should be able to start to nail down through the business plan really what the rates need to be for 2024 and start looking to a third party, just like we do with other rate studies, to say, hey, your rate, you're 8 times under, or you're whatever. I think we need to go outside of the utility at some point here for another look. And this was part of what I brought up last year, and it was, we were going to bring EES in to look at things for 10 grand. We're going to look at water, and we opted not to spend that money and do that. I think in 2024, we need someone else to look at everything and give us a judgment if we're on the right path with rates and with the business plan.
So I can't see the audience in the room.
Leo jumping up and down, waving his arms. No, it's just Leo. We have Leo.
Leo, you wanted to say something?
Actually, before Leo goes, could I just offer one more reflection on what Dan said? So I support more information for the commissioners on broadband to the extent it helps us make decisions like this. And, you know, when decisions that you're going to come to us for something, whether it's approving the next grant application we get or the next proposal, I think we need to be informed enough to make informed decisions. What I don't necessarily support at this time is more special meetings for us that get in the way of you guys executing, because I'm concerned with these grant deadlines and with our inhibiting you focusing on the build out. So and I realize there's a tension there. We want to stay informed. We want to know what the PUD is doing, but I don't want to have meetings about more planning on stuff when it's just like, we just have to get down the trail a little bit further to know, you know, how these things are going to work. We can't keep shifting what we think we're going to do. We actually have to, you know, this is our best guess. Let us do it for a while, but that's just my thought.
Leo?
So first question, so you said 15 million, you get $15 million into this so far. right?
No, that was the budget for next year.
Okay,
We have that money
Right.
available.
So-
And that includes the capital build out costs.
okay, so I mean, what you're putting into this now is grant money, right? I mean, so you theoretically haven't spent anything out of pocket. Right, for your build.
That's not true. As the commission knows, and you can look out across the road, we've spent millions of dollars in future purchases for fiber, for vaults, for conduit. So we have spent, the commissioner has been.
Those are all reimbursed.
They will be
They
reimbursed,
will be reimbursed.
but it doesn't mean we haven't spent the money as of today. We have.
I guess I'm just going to, Ken, you're not here to kind of see the dynamics. I just want to offer, Leo, do you have a comment or a question as opposed to engaging staff in dialogue? Just an observation.
So that was my question, is about the money,
Okay.
right? And the fact that literally, you know, you are being reimbursed, you know, grant money. So, I mean, whether you're being paid now or whether you were paid ahead, you know, I mean, so, and, you know, and I can understand rate changes. And so my comment, I can understand rate changes. It's the fact that if you can, and especially if you can show numbers, right? But then doing them so frequently, because every time you do this, now I got to go to my customers and go, hey, you know, your price is going up and it's going to go up. And as of this date, you either need to have moved on and hooked up with somebody else, or you're going to have to pay X amount of money. And when you're doing that every couple of months, then people are, you know, they get real uneasy. You know, it's like, okay, you know, obviously they don't know, they ain't got this all figured out. So, you know, I better just move somewhere else, whether it be to Wave or CenturyLink or whoever.
So can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So from a business perspective, do you try to adjust your rates like only once a year, or what do you try?
Try not to adjust our rates at all. The only time that we have ever actually increased our rates is when the PUDs have increased their rates. So Astound has gotten cheaper with us, so we've lowered our rates. CenturyLink has gotten cheaper with us, so we've lowered our rates. The only place we've ever increased our rates is PUDs.
So from your perspective, fewer rate adjustments are better. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Stability and consistency.
So in the interest of getting our work done this evening, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution in front of us, which is a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of Public Utility District PUD number 1, Jefferson County, Washington, rescinding previous rates and adopting new and revised rates and charges for retail and wholesale broadband services.
I will, so moved. That's the language I was looking for.
I'll second the motion for the purpose of discussion.
So is there further discussion?
Will has his hand up.
I think you
And-
want to adopt a resolution with the caveat of a January 1st start date. Versus
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'll accept that as a friendly amendment with a January 1st effective date to the rates.
Further discussion.
So I'm going to reiterate, and this isn't a condition, but I'm just stating that, you know, moving forward in 2024, I am very likely not in favor of us doing much changing as we've been doing. So I just want to put that forward. You know, this one, I understand we've made some changes. Most of it looks to be beneficial, but I really want to see more in-depth detail about what we're doing, why we're doing it, you know, and what the reasons for what kind of outcomes is we're looking at through these rates. So having said that, that's my concern is even this one went back and forth in the last 2 weeks quite a bit. We need to find a way for that not to be the case.
So I'm gonna ask Will, what's your comfort level on the board saying, we really hope you don't have to adjust the rates again in 2024? What's your comfort level on that?
I could say that I have not wanted to change the rate once. That I've been responding to changes in the way that not really changes in how we're doing things, just us learning more of what we're doing. We don't have a former retail telecom person on staff. We have advertised for them. We have not gotten them. So we've kind of made this up as we've gone along with the best advice we can find. Our whole goal is to be as beneficial to the PUD and to our ISP partners as we can, to connect as many people as we can. So we wanted to make these changes and get it right before we do our big push. We've
Okay.
had that opportunity. I sincerely do not want to come back, but I will say if I have to come back, we'll come back.
Okay, but it is a shared desire to hopefully not come back again in
I
2024.
have not wanted to come back any of these times. I
Okay.
have so much to do, and this is.
And again, you made the point that I made earlier. I think we are at a point where we do need some outside eyes as we move forward, especially if there's going to be another change to the rates in particular. And this isn't a condition. This is just an observation that we need to change the way we're going about this, i.e. as far as rates are concerned, that this process is kind of going to have to change for me. I need to see more detail. I need to have a better understanding as we're determining rates in particular, services as well. I mean, as we look at the master agreement, if we're going to change certain services and things like that, that will have an effect on the rates possibly. We need to know well in advance what it is that's coming and why, and not be always in these short windows of we have to do it because it's going to be the end of the year now or whatever it may be. We need to get in a mindset and a process where this is more methodical, and an outside set of eyes, I think is needed at this point.
So
So
can I just say one thing, Commissioner? I'm sorry, just for perspective, you have no revenue in this line of business, none. Okay. So it's really hard to guess. And that's just to keep that in mind.
Our lemonade stand hasn't sold a single glass of lemonade.
So on
Not one.
that note, I want to call the question.
Okay, and just for clarification, that's the proposal is to adopt the resolution, but with the effective date of January 1, 2024.
Correct.
And Dan, did you do a
Yeah, I
modified
The
second?
question has been called. All in favor of the motion? to accept the resolution with the change that it goes into effect as of January 1, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The next item, and new business, item 9.1, is rotation of Board of Commissioner positions. And we need to vote on that.
Okay, and that's the positions of president, vice president, and secretary, and that's on the standard schedule that we
Yes,
established a long time ago, and we did it that way so that when elections came up, you didn't have somebody running for election who was president, basically. And I think it's a good practice.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the rotation of the commissioner positions so that in beginning in 2024, Jeff Randall will be president, Dan Tupper will be vice president, and Ken Collins will be secretary. And then it's basically a 2-year term.
Second the motion.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve changes of positions for the Board of Commissioners in 2024 and 2025, please signify by saying aye.
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 And on that one, can I just offer to you two gentlemen, since I'll be taking over the president's position, the two issues that I'm concerned about is how we hold our, I think how we're holding our meetings is really good for getting the business of the PUD done. You know, we hold executive sessions, we are effective in our executive sessions, then we hold our meetings. The concern I have is it feels like, and I ran into Roger Risley on the ferry last week, and I was able to talk to him a little bit. And the concern I have is that has it come at the cost of participation of people in our meetings? That's my concern. So I'm just kind of offering this idea to the two of you to think about, and staff too. Could we have a start time that's more definite, that's the beginning of the meeting, and so that everybody who's here knows they're here for the whole meeting? Is it possible, could we hold our executive sessions differently, like maybe in a special meeting on another day that we don't all even have to be here? Because a lot of the times these executive sessions, people are remote anyway. Joel's remote. You know, we had different people today who were remote. So I just wanted to get you both to kind of think about how do we stay effective in holding the meetings for the purpose of the business of the PUD, but is there a way that we could maybe make it more fun, more effective for the people who want to be here and see us and perhaps to participate, to show up? Just
I think that that's an excellent topic for discussion on another evening. Or afternoon.
Yeah, I just want you to start thinking about it. Think of some ideas.
So we do have one more item on the agenda, and that is approval of the Board of Commissioners regular meeting calendar for 2024. Are there any changes that need to be made to that?
Can I just ask the question of Joel, this, you know, what if would it be possible to have executive sessions as a special meeting to be called if needed, because the public can't participate anyway? What would we be able to do that? I'm just kind of curious from staff if that is something they think could work, or would that create more trouble because you're having a hard time pulling, you know, making sure people are available?
Clarification, you're talking about on the same day like we do now, just have the first part be a meeting and then do a second meeting? I mean,
Well, that's something.
So I've got, pardon me, I've
Go
got
ahead.
a hard stop at 6 o'clock because I've got to pick my wife up at the ferry.
Got it.
So I'm going to be gone at 6, and I would very much like for us to act on this final item.
Sure. Joel, could you just
Yes.
offer on that?
The answer is yes. We can do it that way. Absolutely. There's some notice things we have to do, but that's it. and
Basically,
it's,
the notice-
it can limit it to the special meeting topic.
And the notice is like a minimum of 24 hours before any
Yep.
meeting.
Yep.
So, okay, just a thought, rather than having executive sessions as a part of all these meetings, it's like call them when we need them. Call the commission.
I would be delighted to entertain a motion to approve our calendar.
I will move that we adopt the calendar for 2023 for commissioner regular meeting schedule.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, just to be clear, it's for 2024.
Oh, it says,
Yes,
pardon me, for 2024. I saw the date at the top. I said the wrong date.
Thank you.
Clarification.
further discussion? All in favor of the motion to accept or to approve the Board of Commissioner regular meeting calendar for 2024, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is adjournment. If there is no terribly pressing item that we need to deal with, I will call the meeting adjourned, and thank you very much for your participation.
Good luck with your trip to the ferry terminal.
Thanks, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Yeah,
too.
happy Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
everybody.
happy Thanksgiving.